Hi there, this is Paul Mackey on the Idjit Thoughts on podcast. Well, just on the heels of the recent radio week, this week I'm once again helping out pitching pledge segments on television. I had one earlier this week and another one coming up on Friday. The radio stuff was live on the air, but at least the TV stuff is pre-recorded. A good thing, as I stumbled big time during a couple false starts on Tuesday. I have a lot of words coming up tonight, so hopefully I won't need to edit too much while we look at the Rockford Files. Season 1, Episode 15, Sleight of Hand, originally aired January 17th, 1975. Brief summary. The episode begins with Rockford regretfully pondering about a dead woman found in the surf. He meets up with Rocky, who asks if there's been any news. Then Rocky prompts Rockford with questions of how it all began, in San Francisco or on the way back. Then the episode flashes back to Rockford on a pleasure sailing boat with a woman, Karen, and her young daughter, Julie. As the girl sleeps in the back, the two adults talk for a while. Karen says she's getting tired, and Rockford offers the back seat as an option. Arriving back to Karen's house in the dark, Rockford sends her to open the front door and carries Julie inside, where Karen is nowhere to be seen. Her keys and purse are on a table near the door, but she has vanished. When the cops arrive, they find a recently deceased man in the bushes near the house. Sergeant Becker has Rockford go down to the station, and there Lieutenant Deal, who previously tried getting Rockford on a murder charge back in Episode 3, tries to read him his rights. It seems the policewoman who transported Julie to her father's house asked Julie about Karen, and Julie said, "Mommy didn't come home with us." The corpse was Karen's neighbor out for a walk. Rockford tells Deal everywhere that they stopped between San Francisco and L.A. and authorizes a search of his car. Later, Rockford sits down near the crime scene and notices he's at a bus stop. He tracks down a Diana Lewis and tries to put together her story of walking, taking a bus, and 2 cabs because of an affair she was having. Then it's back to the beach scene at the start, telling Rocky that the Diana Lewis dead end was hard to take. It turns out the body from his flashbacks was someone else entirely, but he keeps thinking Karen might turn up the same way. Rocky turns attention back to Julie, saying Karen didn't come home, and Jim realizes he didn't see Karen after she went to the ladies' room at the restaurant, except her sleeping form in the back seat, a sleeping form that could just as easily have been Diana Lewis. Back at the residential hotel, he finds her body. He searches the place and finds a matchbook from the Buena Vista Inn, the last place that he did see Karen. He calls Becker to tell him all this, but Becker declines to check out the Buena Vista. Plus, he tells Jim there's a warrant out for his arrest. A man named Michael, who was known to be involved with Diana, comes in to search the place, and Jim roughs him up to get the full story. Karen took a wrong turn from the ladies' room and saw something she wasn't supposed to. The manager told Diana, who was working there as an entertainer, to take Karen's jacket and pose as her in Rockford's car until she could get away. He says the Buena Vista was a mob joint, but it was clean, no gambling or anything else on site. Rockford follows Michael to the Buena Vista, and when Jim goes near the room Michael went into, a guy sends him off, telling him it's a private wing. On a hunch, Rockford calls in an accident report to the fire department and a robbery report to the police. A well-known fugitive mobster is flushed out of the motel by the sound of the sirens, and Becker and Deal arrive in time for Rockford to tell them to chase the mobster's car and get the arrest. Jim is back to the beach afterward. Rocky tries to get him out to a fishing cabin at Big Bear, pointing out Karen's death wasn't his fault, but Jim declines.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
Rockford, this is Mr. Dow. If you think I'm going to pay to have your car repainted, you're nuts. You can take your expense bill and stuff it.
Who is? Okay, there wasn't a notable guest star aside from a young and very clean-shaven Gerald McRaney as Irv the hotel manager, so I think I'll just go for it today. And today I will feature James Garner. James Scott Bum Garner was born in Denver, Oklahoma, part of present-day Norman, Oklahoma, in 1928. His father was part German and his mother half Cherokee. His father ran a general store. When he was 5, Garner's mother died, and his father sent the children to live with relatives until he eventually remarried. Garner attended Norman High School before joining the Merchant Marine near the end of World War II. He suffered seasickness and only lasted a year before moving to Los Angeles with his father, where he attended Hollywood High and worked laying carpet with his father. He worked modeling swimsuits for the Jantzen Company, but did not like modeling and soon quit and moved back to Norman, attending Norman High School again and playing football, basketball, track, and golf before eventually dropping out. He joined the California National Guard and served 7 months there before being deployed to Korea as part of the 24th Infantry. He was wounded in battle twice, earning 2 Purple Hearts. Garner took a non-speaking role on Broadway in 1954, where he worked nightly with Henry Fonda. Then he worked in commercials before getting roles on television. He was considered for the lead in Cheyenne in 1955, but wound up in a supporting role during the pilot. After a supporting role on an anthology show, Conflict, in 1957, his acting drew the attention of that show's producer, Roy Huggins, which led to him casting in the lead role in Maverick. Maverick was a great success, beating both the Ed Sullivan Show and the Steve Allen Show in the same time slot. However, Garner had a conflict with the Warner Brothers television executives and left the show after 3 seasons. Warner's graylisted Garner, but he was eventually cast in The Children's Hour alongside Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine. He worked extensively in film after that, appearing in films like The Great Escape, Grand Prix, Support Your Local Sheriff, and starring as Philip Marlowe in 1969's Marlowe. Roy Huggins had the idea to remake Maverick in a modern setting, and with the help of Stephen J. Cannell, the Rockford Files was created, and Garner played Rockford through part of the 1980 season. He worked long hours, often remaining on set to perform his off-camera lines when other leading men would have gone home. He also performed most of his own stunts. The long hours and physical challenges, along with an old wartime knee injury flare-up and hospitalization for a bleeding ulcer, led to his doctor ordering him to rest, at which point Universal immediately canceled the series. Garner then appeared in a Brett Maverick revival series on NBC for a season and back into movie roles, in Victor Victoria, and earning a Best Supporting Oscar nomination for Murphy's Romance in 1985. He co-starred with Bruce Willis in Sunset in 1988. In the 90s, Garner returned to the role of Jim Rockford for 8 television movies, under the stipulation before each film that he be paid in full, in cash, before each film began shooting. He also appeared in 1995's Maverick big screen remake, where Mel Gibson played the title character. He had a dual knee replacement in 2000 and appeared with Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, and Donald Sutherland in Space Cowboys. When John Ritter died in 2003, Garner joined the cast of 8 Simple Rules as Grandpa Jack Egan. His final performance was a voice role in 2010 in the direct-to-video DC movie Superman Shazam! The Return of Black Adam in the role of Shazam. Outside of acting, Garner was active in politics, including civil rights, joining Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the March on Washington, where Garner was in the third row to listen to the I Have a Dream speech. He was also a strong advocate for the environment, including preservation of areas in the Santa Monica Mountains and prevention of oil drilling offshore from Will Rogers State Beach. James Garner passed away at age 86 in 2014. This aged poorly, or possibly totally 70s, so take your pick there too. There's either a trait of 70s single men or a trait of 70s television writing where Rockford is being a ladies' man, or possibly they're relying on viewers to have a short attention span. Let me explain. Rockford just last week was shown to have been on repeated dates with Sarah Butler, and this week he's had some fairly serious dating with divorcee Karen Mills, including a sailing outing with her daughter. If it's Jim Rockford ladies' man, then he would have to have been carrying on with both of those ladies at the same time. Otherwise, the cynic in me says the writers shrugged and said, American TV viewers don't pay attention to who the girl is from week to week. Artifactoids. Well, this episode was based on a 1954 novel by author Howard Brown titled Thin Air. Howard Brown was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1908. He dropped out of high school and moved to Chicago. He worked as a newspaper reporter and department store credit manager and wrote for pulp magazines on the side around 1939. The pulp writing was a gateway into the publishing world. By 1942, he became a managing editor at Ziff Davis for Amazing Stories and Fantastic Adventures. He took over chief editor positions in 1950, but quit the industry in 1956 to move to Hollywood. Among other television work, Brown wrote for Maverick, 77 Sunset Strip, and The Fugitive, which were all created by Rockford Files co-creator Roy Huggins. The novel Thin Air was well regarded, but one assumes the prior episodes on Huggins' series also got the novel adapted on Rockford. Thin Air was also later adapted for television in 1982 for an episode of Simon & Simon. His last writing credit was for 1975's Capone, starring Ben Gazzara. Howard Brown passed away in 1999. What worked? This was a really tight, well-crafted story. Unlike last time, it didn't leave me puzzling over why anything happened, but it didn't seem oversimplified either. The story had more of that hard-boiled Raymond Chandler-esque edge that I know they were shooting for, and that I really enjoy. I really wish the little girl didn't lose her mother, but that's just one more hard-boiled element, I suppose. What didn't work? It's really just tiny plot important nitpicks, really. Why would the little girl say Mommy didn't come home, but not also add there was a strange lady in the car? So next time is Season 1, Episode 16, Counter Gambit. Happy hunting! You've been listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, produced by Paul Mackey in association with Nimlas Studios. Any short clips of audio from shows is included under fair use for commentary purposes, and copyright for that content remains with its original copyright holders. The theme song is Too Good by Jack Mangan and is used by his generous permission. One Idjit's Thoughts is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You can find more episodes of this podcast and many other fine podcasts at nimlas.org. You can contact me by emailing idjitcastpodcast@gmail.com or commenting on episodes at nimlas.org.
Let's make our own memories.
Beating both the Ed Sullivan show... Sullivan. Maverick was a great success, beating both the Ed Sullivan show... Maverick was a great success, beating both the Ed Sullivan... Maverick was a great success, beating both the Ed Sullivan...